When we first got to Compton, my mother had a cousin that lived in Compton, and when we arrived, we stayed there for a couple of days, and then they rented a small house in Compton. It was actually a duplex, and it was a very old house, very old house. But we didn't live there long. Then we moved to a home right behind it, where we were during the earthquake. But then, shortly after the earthquake, we moved to a house that was a little more out in the country, where we had about a half to or three-quarters of an acre. I don't know exactly how big it was. But we lived there from 1933 until we moved into the new home in late 1940, I believe it was. A typical California frame house that was built in probably the late teens or early 20s. Big front porch, gable roof, not a very big house, probably, I'm sure it wasn't more than, I'm sure it was under 1,000 square feet. One bath and a kitchen and the living room. Dining room sort of on it. I would say the living room on the right and the dining room on the left covered the whole front of the house. I was sitting on a couch at the side of the house under a window when the earthquake hit. I think it was March the 11th, 1933, I think. I know it was in March 1933. I heard the noise first. I was sitting there with my sister, and I got up and it threw me across the room, and the chandelier came down right behind me and crashed in the middle of the living room floor. Everything out of the kitchen cupboard, ended up on the floor. Everything that was on the stove, which my mother was cooking dinner, ended up on the floor. Let me tell you, my children get on me every time I start talking about the earthquake. They say, "Oh, we don't want to hear that again. You're going to tell us about the big one." But at any rate, it was quite a shocker. All I know is I was thrown across the room, and I was just probably 7 years old. And it kept shaking, and then we went outside. My father went out. He thought a truck had hit the house. But at any rate, after the initial shock, we kept having little earthquakes all night long. And everybody in the neighborhood, most everyone in the neighborhood, moved out into a vacant lot and moved their mattresses out there. And I think for 2 or 3 days they slept outside. They had a central place in Compton where you could go for meals, had military police, or military, I guess they must have declared martial law at one time, I believe. The downtown section of Compton, it had been brick buildings, and the front of the brick buildings were all right in the middle of the street. Every school building in the Compton School District, except Linwood Junior High School, where I finally went to school, had to be demolished and replaced. The earthquake hit Compton real hard. I believe it's called the Long Beach quake, but Long Beach and Compton were definitely the hardest hit. The schools were shut down until they could get portable classrooms built. The only people I think that got hurt were really downtown, but I understand in the earthquake 123 people did get killed, I believe it was, but maybe a lot of that was in Long Beach. Downtown Long Beach and downtown Compton were the hardest hit. We had a lot of earthquakes after the 33 quake when I lived in Compton. Compton had a lot of, minor earthquakes throughout the years. It was nothing to be out in the backyard playing and all of a sudden the ground started shaking.